The last thing Maddox Pierce expected to find on a rainy Tuesday afternoon was a woman doubled over in pain outside a gas station, clutching her stomach like she was about to collapse. He just dropped his 6-year-old son, Illy, off at his friend's house so he could head straight to his second job at the auto shop. The rain had picked up fast, hammering down on the windshield of his beat-up pickup, windshield wipers fighting for their lives. He only stopped at the gas station because the fuel light had been screaming at him for 20 minutes. But then he saw her. She was soaked, hair plastered to her cheeks, one hand braced against the wall for support. She looked like she was trying to stay upright with sheer willpower. Something about the panic in her eyes hit him right in the chest. He jumped out of the truck, forgetting the pump entirely. "Hey, are you okay?" "I need to get to a hospital," she gasped, voice tight. "Now." Without asking another question, Maddox wrapped an arm around her waist and helped her into the passenger seat. She was shivering, barely able to fasten the seatbelt. "What's your name?" he asked as he peeled out of the lot, tires screeching against the wet pavement. "Harlow," she whispered. "Harlow Jennings." "I'm Maddox. Hold on, we'll get you there." He drove like a man possessed, weaving through traffic, ignoring red lights. She groaned softly beside him, holding her side. "Can you tell me what's wrong?" he asked, glancing sideways at her. "I think it's my appendix, or something worse," she muttered. "I was driving myself, but I got dizzy, pulled over and couldn't keep going." For a second, Maddox forgot how tired he was from working 2 jobs, how his hands were still stained with grease from his morning shift. All he saw was a woman in pain. And something else too, something sharp in her eyes that told him she wasn't used to being vulnerable. He pulled up to the ER entrance 10 minutes later and ran inside to grab help. Within seconds, nurses were wheeling her away, and he stood there, soaked, heart racing. He should have left then. But something about her made him stay. 2 hours passed before a nurse came out to update him. "She's stable. It was early appendicitis. We caught it in time. She's asking for you." Maddox blinked. "Me?" "Yes," she said, "you saved her life." He walked into the hospital room awkwardly, hands in his pockets, unsure why she'd want to see him. Harlow was propped up in bed, hair damp but eyes alert. "Hey," she said softly, "you stayed." "You asked for me," he replied, shifting on his feet. "Still, most people would have dropped me off and disappeared." Maddox shrugged. "I'm not most people." "No," she said, studying him, "you're not." He didn't know what to say to that. She was beautiful, even under harsh hospital lights, with high cheekbones and sharp green eyes that didn't miss a thing. "You okay now?" he asked. "Yeah, I'll be here overnight, but the worst is over." She paused. "Thank you, Maddox, seriously. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't shown up." He gave a small nod. "I'm just glad I was there." They were quiet for a second. Then she asked, "Why'd you stop?" "I saw you and knew something was wrong. Couldn't just drive by." She smiled. "You're a good man." He ran a hand through his hair. "Try telling that to my landlord." Her brow furrowed. "Things are rough." He hesitated, but something about her felt safe. "Yeah, just me and my son. His mom left when he was a baby. I've been working 2 jobs to keep things going. It's not pretty, but he's my world." Her expression changed, softened. "What's his name?" "Illy, he's 6. Loves dinosaurs and asking a million questions." "I'd love to meet him sometime." That caught him off guard. "You would." "Yeah," she said, her voice gentle. "You helped me. Least I can do is buy you dinner." Maddox let out a breathless laugh. "You don't owe me anything." "I know," she said, smiling, "but I want to." He didn't know what surprised him more, that she wanted to see him again, or that he wanted to see her too. They exchanged no numbers, no promises, just a strange, undeniable pull that lingered even as he walked out of the hospital and back into the rain. The next morning, Harlow Jennings stepped into the top floor of a steel and glass skyscraper downtown, brushed off her assistant's worried questions, and walked straight into her office. The name on the door said, Jennings Corp., CEO Harlow Jennings. But no one here knew that yesterday. She'd been just a soaked woman by the side of the road, saved by a man who had no clue she ran a billion-dollar tech company. And for the first time in a long time, Harlow didn't want to be the CEO. She just wanted to see the man who looked at her like she mattered without knowing anything about her status, her money, or her last name. She wanted to find Maddox Pierce again. The bell above the garage door rang with a sharp clang, drawing Maddox's attention away from the engine he was elbow deep in. He slid out from under the lifted sedan, wiping his hands on a rag that had long since given up the fight against grease stains. A woman stood near the entrance, not quite inside, not quite outside. Her coat was too tailored for the neighborhood, and the leather boots she wore had definitely never seen a day of manual labor. Her hair was pinned back in a sleek twist, and she held a small paper bag like it might explode if she squeezed too tight. Harlow, Maddox blinked, stepping farther into the light. You okay? She smiled, a little hesitant at the edges. Ask the nurse at the hospital where you worked. Hope that's not weird. He tossed the rag aside and gestured to the break room door. Come in. It's not much, but there's coffee that tastes like regret and a chair that's only slightly broken. She didn't laugh. Instead, she walked toward him and held out the bag. I brought you lunch. It's not a thank you, just something. He opened the bag and peered inside. A roast beef sandwich, a container of pasta salad, and a wrapped chocolate chip cookie, all from a cafe that spelled artisan with a Z. He hadn't had food like that in years. You didn't have to. I know, I wanted to, she said. They sat on opposite sides of a scuffed table in the corner of the garage's makeshift kitchen. The air smelled like oil and burnt toast. Maddox took a bite of the sandwich and closed his eyes briefly. This is the kind of thing people eat when they're not working double shifts, he said, swallowing. You sure you're feeling all right? I didn't think you'd show. I'm fine. The doctor said no complications. She hesitated, fingers curling around her coffee cup. I had some time to think while I was stuck in that room. He waited, chewing slowly. I don't usually let people help me, she continued, eyes flicking to his. I've gotten used to solving problems on my own, but when I saw you, something in me just let go, and I hate that. I'm not good at needing anyone. He didn't say anything right away, just set the sandwich down and leaned back slightly, watching her. You don't owe me an explanation. I know, she said again, softer now, but I want to explain anyway. He tilted his head. Where were you headed before everything went sideways? I was supposed to fly to San Francisco for a merger meeting. It's been on the books for 6 months. She gave a dry laugh. My assistant thought I'd been kidnapped when I didn't show up. So you blew off a major meeting to come find me. I didn't blow it off, she said. I rescheduled it, which is something I never do. Maddox ran a hand over the back of his neck. Why? I don't know yet, she admitted. But I've been surrounded by people who only talk to me because they want something. And then you showed up and you didn't ask anything. You didn't even hesitate, and I can't stop thinking about that. He looked down at his hands, then back at her. You're used to people needing you, not the other way around. She nodded once. I'm used to being the guy people walk past, he said, not the one they come back for. There was a long pause, the kind that settles in the air like dust, visible if you look closely enough. I'd like to see you again, Harlow said, voice steady. Maddox blinked. You mean like this? No, not like this. I want to take you somewhere. He raised an eyebrow. You planning to kidnap me or something?" "No," she replied, "but I want to show you a part of my life, just one. If you hate it, you never have to see it again." He studied her, searching for cracks in the offer, but she was serious, intent. "I'll need to ask my sister to watch Ellie." "I'll cover it," she said quickly, "whatever it costs." He shook his head. "No, if we're doing this, we're doing it on even ground." Something in her eyes flickered, not offense, but understanding. She nodded. "All right, even ground." She stood, brushing non-existent lint from her trousers. "I'll send a car to pick you up at 6 tomorrow." "You have my address." She only smiled. "I do." Then she left, the bell over the door ringing behind her, leaving the scent of expensive perfume and unanswered questions in her wake. The next evening, Maddox buttoned the only clean shirt he owned and kissed Ellie goodnight before stepping outside. He expected a black car. Maybe a town car, something discreet. What pulled up was a midnight blue vehicle, so sleek it looked like it belonged in a museum. A driver in a charcoal suit opened the door for him without a word. "You gotta be kidding me," Maddox muttered, sliding into leather that probably cost more than his entire paycheck. The car took him somewhere he'd never been before, an art gallery, with floor-to-ceiling windows and chandeliers that looked like they were made of stars. Inside, people sipped champagne and spoke in low voices, while abstract sculptures loomed in corners like silent judges. Harlow waited at the top of the staircase, her silhouette framed by a massive painting that looked like a hurricane trapped in acrylic. She was wearing a fitted black suit, no jewelry, no fanfare. Just power distilled into elegance. "You look like you own the place," he said as he approached. "I do." He let out a low breath. "That explains the driver." "I wanted to see how you'd react." "And you're not impressed by money, that's rare." "I'm impressed by effort," he said, "and you're trying hard." "I am." They strolled through the gallery, stopping in front of a piece that looked like it had been painted with rage and fire. "This one's mine," she said. "You painted it." "I commissioned it during a lawsuit that nearly tore my company apart. It reminded me that chaos can still be beautiful." He turned to her. "You're not who I thought you were." "No, I'm not. And yet, I don't want to leave." She looked up at him, something vulnerable flickering across her features. "Then don't." He reached out slowly, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "I won't," he said. "Not tonight. And maybe not ever." Maddox stood on the edge of the rooftop terrace, the city glittering behind him like a sea of broken diamonds. He wasn't sure which was harder to believe, that he was at a private fundraiser overlooking the skyline, or that he'd come here willingly, wearing a tailored jacket Harlow had insisted he borrow from the on-site valet service. She hadn't told him this was a formal event. Of course she hadn't. Harlow Jennings didn't operate on predictable terms. She thrived on momentum, on pulling people into her world one move ahead of everyone else. He turned at the sound of heels against stone. Harlow approached with a glass of something amber in one hand and a reservation in her eyes. "I had a feeling you'd find the balcony," she said. "You have a thing for not warning people when you're about to drop them into a crowd of millionaires." She handed him the drink. "It's whiskey, small batch, you'll like it." He didn't take it. "You didn't answer the question." "I didn't think you'd come if I told you." "You're right." She leaned against the railing beside him, her posture relaxed, but her expression anything but. "I wanted to see how you'd hold up in a place like this." "Like a test." "More like a mirror." He looked out at the skyline again. "I don't belong here." "You say that like it's a bad thing." He finally accepted the drink, taking a slow sip. It burned in a way that felt clean. I work on engines, Harlow. You buy companies that build them. I don't care what you do. Don't lie. I'm not. I've had men in $5,000 suits try to impress me with yacht fleets and private art collections. You're the first person who's made me feel like could actually exhale. He tilted his head. So you brought me here to prove what exactly? That I trust you. That I want to include you in parts of my life that no one else gets to see. Her voice was quiet, but the weight of it hit harder than the whiskey. Maddox set the glass down on the ledge. You say that, but we both know this isn't sustainable. Then make it sustainable, she said. I'm not asking you to become someone you're not. I'm asking you to stop running from what this could be. He let out a breath, not quite a laugh. You're intense. You're not the first person to say that. And you're not scared. I might crash headfirst into everything you've built. She looked at him, her gaze steady. No, I'm scared you'll walk away before I can convince you that I don't care about any of that. Before he could answer, a man in a tuxedo stepped onto the terrace and called her name. Apologies, the man said, glancing at Maddox with faint curiosity. The board wants a moment of your time. I'll be there in 5, she said, not looking away from Maddox. The man hesitated, but left without argument. Maddox folded his arms. That's the part I don't get. You're running a billion-dollar empire, and you're out here trying to convince a broke mechanic to let you in. You didn't ask me for anything. That matters more than you think. I'm not sure I know how to be a part of your world. Then let me be part of yours, she said. I don't care if it's a diner breakfast or a school run, just give me a chance. He studied her, the sharp lines of her face softened by something fragile hope. And for the first time since he met her, he saw the woman beneath the armor. Not the CEO, not the strategist. Just Harlow. He nodded once. All right then, you're coming to Elise Science Fair tomorrow. Her eyebrows lifted. Seriously. You want in, that's the price. I'll be there. No designer heels. I'll wear sneakers. And no driver. I'll take the subway. He laughed, and this time it wasn't bitter. You've never taken the subway in your life. You're right, she said, but I'm willing to learn. The next afternoon, Maddox waited outside Elise Elementary School, checking the time on his phone for the 3rd time in 5 minutes. He hadn't told Elise she was coming. He wasn't sure how to explain Harlow Jennings to a 6-year-old without triggering a million questions he wasn't ready to answer. Then he saw her. Hair in a ponytail, a plain navy jacket zipped up to her chin, and sneakers that were so new they still had the store tag tucked inside. She looked like she was trying to blend in, but she might as well have walked in wearing a spotlight. You're late, he said. I had to ask for directions 3 times, she admitted. I got lost between transfers. He grinned. You really took the subway. I even gave a man $5 because he played the violin too well for me not to. Inside, the gymnasium was chaos tables lined with poster boards, glitter-glued titles, and half-eaten snacks. Ellie spotted his dad and came barreling toward him. Dad got 2nd place. That's amazing, bud. Maddox knelt down and hugged him. I'm proud of you. Ellie noticed the woman standing nearby and tilted his head. Who's she? Maddox stood. This is Harlow, she's a friend. Ellie looked up at her. Do you like dinosaurs? I love them, she said, crouching to his level, but I'm terrible at drawing them. He beamed. I made a volcano that really erupts. Wanna see? I'd love to. Maddox watched as Ellie took her hand and dragged her toward his display. Harlow followed without hesitation, laughing at something Ellie said about lava being basically spicy soup. And in that moment, something shifted. She wasn't a stranger anymore. Later, after the science fair had cleared out and Ellie had fallen asleep in the backseat of the truck, Maddox drove Harlow back to her place. It wasn't until he pulled up to the penthouse building that he realized what he was doing. "You want to come in?" she asked, voice low. He hesitated. "I'm not asking for anything," she added. "Just stay a while." He checked the mirror. Ellie was out cold, breath slow and even. "All right," he said, turning off the engine. Inside, the elevator opened directly into her apartment, an open floor plan with floor-to-ceiling views and furniture that looked like it belonged in a gallery. But none of it felt cold. There were photos on the walls now. A few plants. It felt lived in. She poured 2 glasses of wine and handed him one. "I've never let anyone see this place," she said. "You're the first." He glanced around. "It's a hell of a view." "So is the one from your truck," she said. "Different, but just as real." He looked at her, really looked. "You let my son hold your hand today." She smiled. "He's easy to love." "So are you," he said before he could stop himself. She didn't flinch. "Then don't stop." He reached out, brushed his fingers against her cheek. "I'm scared," he admitted. "So am I." "But I'm here," he said. "Good," she whispered, "because I don't want this to be temporary." Neither did he, but they both knew the world wouldn't make it easy. Still, as the city lights flickered below them, Maddox made a silent promise to try. Because some things were worth falling for even when you never saw them coming. Rain streaked down the windows of Maddox's small living room, soft thunder rumbling in the distance. The television was on, muted, casting flickers of light across the worn rug where Ellie sat surrounded by a fortress of cardboard cutouts and toy astronauts. Harlow was curled on the couch next to Maddox, her elbow resting lightly against his, her eyes not on the screen but on the quiet life unfolding around her. She reached for his hand, her fingers brushing the calluses along his palm. "You ever think about what it would be like if things were different?" He turned his head slightly. "Different how?" "If we'd met under other circumstances, without the emergency, without the pressure." "Would you have noticed me?" His voice was calm, but there was something buried beneath it. Not insecurity, something older. Like he'd learned to expect disappointment and carry it quietly. She shifted closer. "I would have noticed you even if I'd passed you on a sidewalk." "You say that now." "I'm not interested in hypotheticals. Care about what's real." She let her thumb trace the side of his hand. "And this is." He looked over at Ellie, who was dramatically launching a stuffed bear into orbit from a cardboard rocket. "He really likes you." "I like him too. He told me today that I seem like someone who owns a spaceship." Took that as high praise. Maddox chuckled, low and rough. "He's usually more cautious." "That's not surprising." "Why?" "You're cautious too. You think love's a luxury you can't afford." He didn't answer right away. Then, "I've spent so long surviving, I forgot what it feels like to want something just because it makes me happy." She leaned in, her lips brushing the side of his jaw. "Want me?" His breath caught and he turned to her fully. "I already do, that's the problem." "No," she whispered, "that's the beginning." The knock at the door came before he could say anything else. Ellie scrambled up to answer it, but Maddox stood quickly, intercepting him. Outside stood a woman in a camel coat, her umbrella dripping water onto the porch. "Vanessa," Maddox said, tension creeping into his voice. Harlow stood carefully behind him, silent but alert. Vanessa gave a tight smile. "I was in town, thought I'd check in." "You haven't shown up in over a year," he said, stepping outside and closing the door behind him. "What do you want?" "I heard from my sister. She said you've been spending time with someone. Important." He crossed his arms. If you came to stir things up, turn around. I came because I'm not sure you know what you're getting into. Do you know who she is? I know enough. She's worth more than this entire neighborhood. Why would someone like her stick around? Because she sees me. Vanessa's expression shifted, but she caught herself. Just don't let your guard down. People like her, they don't stay. The rain picked up, slicing through the air like static. He didn't flinch. I'm not interested in anything you have to say about her. Vanessa sighed, then turned and walked away without another word. Inside, Harlow was by the window, watching the rain. That was her, she said. Yeah. She doesn't trust me. She doesn't know you. Harlow turned to him, but do you? He stepped closer. I trust what I feel when I look at you. She reached for him again, but this time her hands trembled slightly. I was offered a relocation today. Geneva. Head office wants me to oversee a global expansion. He froze. When? 2 weeks. The silence stretched between them. I didn't say yes, she added, but I didn't say no either. He nodded slowly. What does that mean for us? That's what I'm trying to figure out. He looked at her, really looked. You're scared. I am. So am I. I don't want to leave this, she said, but also don't want to make you choose between resenting me and chasing something that may not last. He reached for her waist, pulling her into the circle of his arms. Then, let's make it last. How? Come back here, he said. Don't run. I'm not running, she whispered. I'm standing in front of the only man who's ever looked at me like I'm human, not a position or a paycheck. His hand traced her jaw. Then let's be human together. The next morning, Maddox stood in the middle of a boutique where the cheapest item probably cost more than his monthly rent. He was wearing a suit that had been tailored to his exact measurements, something Harlow had arranged without asking. He should have felt out of place. He didn't. She stepped out of a fitting room, adjusting the lapel of a sleek gray coat. Do I look like I belong at a press conference? You look like you could run the world. I do, she said, but I want to run towards something this time. The stylist returned with a box. This arrived for you, Ms. Jennings, special delivery. Harlow opened it, then paused. Inside was a velvet box and a letter. She handed the letter to Maddox. It's from the board, she said quietly. They approved a new proposal. Stay here, we open a satellite office. Appoint a local director and keep my base in the city. Is that what you want? I told them I'd only accept if I had a reason to stay. He stepped forward. And do you? I do now. Later that evening, the rooftop of her building was transformed. Twinkling lights strung across the railing. A table set for 3 Illy included. A violinist played quietly in the corner. It wasn't flashy. It was perfect. Illy tugged at his too big blazer. Are we having a wedding? Maddox laughed. Not quite. Harlow knelt beside him. We're celebrating something special. What? She looked up at Maddox, her eyes shining. A promise. Maddox reached into his pocket and pulled out a ring. Not flashy, not expensive, but chosen with care. I didn't bring you to a mountain top, he said. There's no orchestra, but I've never been more certain of anything. Harlow's breath hitched as he took her hand. I love you, not because you saved me, but because you saw me, every cracked part, and you stayed. She blinked, tears slipping down her cheeks. Yes. You didn't let me finish. I don't need you to. My answer's yes no matter what you ask. He slid the ring on her finger, and Illy clapped, completely unaware of the weight of the moment but happy all the same. The violinist shifted into a slow, sweeping melody. Harlow leaned into Maddox's chest, her voice soft against his collar. You didn't have to do all this. I wanted to give you something you'd remember. I'll remember everything. The lights above twinkled like a constellation made just for them. Maddox held her close, the warmth of her body grounding him, steadying him. For the first time in years, he wasn't surviving. He was living. And he was doing it with her. The sound of laughter echoed through the empty lobby of Jennings Corp long after business hours. Maddox's boots carried faint traces of sawdust from a school project he'd helpfully finish earlier that afternoon, and he still had a smear of blue paint on his forearm. Harlow trailed beside him, her heels in one hand, the other linked with his. I can't believe you convinced me to come here dressed like this, he said, glancing around at the marble floors and towering glass panels. You're not dressed like anything, she replied, eyes glinting. You're just you, that's the whole point. He raised an eyebrow. You don't think the board would have something to say if they knew you were dragging your boyfriend through the headquarters barefoot? They'd try to write a memo. I'd burn it. He chuckled. You always talk like you're 2 steps from setting the world on fire. I am, but not everything needs burning anymore. She stopped near the elevator, tugged him gently into the executive wing. I want to show you something. He followed her past glass-walled offices and sleek desks, down a quieter hallway that ended with a frosted door. She keyed in a code and pushed it open. Inside was a room unlike any other he'd seen in the building. It was warm. Wooden shelves lined the walls, filled not with awards or corporate books, but picture frames, notebooks, old mugs from startup years. A single desk sat in the middle, simple, with a view that overlooked the city's river. This was my father's office, she said. They offered to redesign it when I took over. I refused. He stepped inside, absorbing the space. There was a blanket folded over the chair. A child's drawing pinned beside the skyline photo, a worn baseball glove on the windowsill. You've never brought anyone in here, have you? No. He turned to face her. Why me? Her eyes didn't waver. Because you're not afraid of the parts of me that aren't polished. Because you treat this me like something real, not a trophy, not a transaction. He walked toward her slowly. You know, the first time I saw you, I thought you were losing a fight with gravity. She laughed, soft and genuine. I was. He stopped in front of her, and now? I'm standing. She touched the lapel of his jacket, fingers brushing the fabric like she was memorizing it. I've never let anyone into this space because it holds everything I've tried to protect. My past, my fear, my reasons. But now, I want it to hold something else. He looked around the room again. What? Us. A quiet moment passed, heavier than silence. He stepped forward, closing the space between them entirely. She didn't move, didn't blink. I've never asked you for anything, he said. You didn't need to. But I will now. She tilted her head. What is it? I want to build something with you, not just find a place in your world. I want to make a new one, for us, for Illy. Her lips parted, but no words came. I know what can offer isn't clean or shiny, but it's steady, and it's real. She reached for him, hands curling at his waist. Then let's do it, let's build it. The next morning, Maddox stood outside a storefront on a quiet street corner. The windows were covered in brown paper, but he could see through the edges. Tools, blueprints, shelves half-built. Harlow joined him, carrying 2 coffees and a key. You sure about this? She asked, handing him the cup. He took it, nodding toward the door. I've always wanted to open a shop where I could teach kids how to work with their hands, build from scratch, not just engines, furniture, models, anything they dream up. Why didn't you? Didn't have the time or the money. She held out the key. Now you do. He didn't take it right away. If I do this, it's with both feet. I don't want to be a name on a lease you cover. I want to earn it. You already have, she said, but we'll do it your way. He took the key, sliding it into the lock. Inside, the space was raw. Unfinished floors, scattered tools, sawdust in the corners. But to him, it was the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen. I want Ellie to see me choose something, he said, not just get handed leftovers. He will, she replied. He already has. That night, the three of them sat cross-legged on the floor of the shop, eating noodles out of takeout boxes. Ellie drew blueprints on a sheet of craft paper, explaining where the idea's station should be, while Harlow nodded seriously and took notes. Maddox watched the two of them, his chest tightening with something he recognized now. Peace, not the absence of struggle, but the presence of purpose. Later, after Ellie had fallen asleep in the back office on a pile of folded drop cloths, Harlow leaned her head against Maddox's shoulder. I had a house in the Hamptons once, she said. It was quiet, beautiful, but it never felt like home. And this does. She looked around at the bare walls, the crooked sign out front, the half-painted workbench. Yes. He kissed the top of her head. I think I finally understand what you meant the night you said you wanted to be part of my world. She turned to him, and I'm glad I let you in. Weeks passed. The shop opened under the name Second Draft, a nod to both Maddox's love of rebuilding and Harlow's belief in second chances. Kids signed up faster than he expected. Parents offered to volunteer. Word spread. Harlow didn't miss a single Saturday morning. She sat in the back with a coffee, watching Ellie teach other kids how to sand wood without losing their fingers. One afternoon, Maddox found her repainting the trim on the front window. She had paint on her cheek and a rip in her jeans. You're not exactly blending into the billionaire stereotype, he teased. Not aiming to, she replied, brushing hair from her face. Besides, I like the look of this place better than any boardroom. He leaned against the doorway. So this is the life now. She stood, stretching. This is the life we chose. As spring turned to summer, the city hummed with warmth and promise. Maddox and Harlow moved into a small house on a quiet block, nothing extravagant, just enough space for Ellie to have a backyard and Harlow to finally plant the garden she'd talked about. One night, as they sat on the porch watching the stars blink to life, Maddox took her hand. I used to think love had to look a certain way. Fancy dates, perfect timing, grand plans. And now I know it looks like this. Messy, unscripted, but stronger than anything I've ever known. She leaned in, her voice barely above a whisper. I never thought I'd find this, not in a parking lot, not in a storm. He kissed her then, slow, certain. I'd drive through 1,000 more storms if it meant finding you again. They stayed like that, wrapped in each other, until the crickets quieted and the world settled around them. And in the stillness, with nothing left to prove or fear, they let themselves believe in something rare. A love that didn't ask for perfection. Just honesty, effort, and the courage to begin again, together. The first time Harlow heard Maddox laugh like that, unrestrained, loud, and from somewhere deep in his chest, they were standing in the middle of a community center gym, surrounded by chaos. It was the school's spring into science fair, and Ellie had convinced Maddox to build a working model of a pulley system using nothing but recycled parts and duct tape. The contraption, though impressive, had accidentally launched a foam basketball into the principal's coffee cup 20 feet away. My bad, Maddox said through laughter as he retrieved the dripping ball. You're going to be banned from every school event at this rate, Harlow said, holding back her own laughter as Ellie doubled over beside her. Maddox tossed the ball back into the bin. If I am, I'm retiring on a high note. The fair ended with sticky fingers, crumpled ribbons, and Ellie proudly informing everyone that my dad built a machine that can take down a coffee mug from across the room. Harlow stayed close to Maddox the entire time, her hand occasionally brushing his, her fingers lingering just a second longer each time. She had stopped counting the number of days she spent at the shop or how many evenings she fell asleep with Maddox's arm curled around her waist and Ellie snoring somewhere down the hall. What had started as a whirlwind was now a rhythm, not always smooth, but undeniably theirs. One afternoon, Harlow arrived at second draft to find Maddox standing in front of a chalkboard with a group of teenagers. "All right, so if we want the greenhouse to hold heat overnight," he said, tapping a diagram, "we're gonna need to insulate the foundation. What materials can we use that don't break the budget?" "Cardboard," one student offered. "Good start, but we need something that'll hold longer in the rain." "Old plastic sheeting." "Now we're talking." Harlow leaned against the doorway, watching him. His sleeves were rolled up, sawdust clinging to his forearms, and his hair slightly damp from the humidity. He looked like he was exactly where he was meant to be. When the students left, Maddox wiped his hands on a rag and walked over. "You're early." "I wanted to see your greenhouse lesson. It's impressive." "Yeah, well, I'm still figuring it out. Kids want to build things, but no one teaches them how." "You're doing more than teaching," she said. "You're giving them something real to hold on to." He glanced at her, then down at his hands. "I've been thinking." She raised an eyebrow. "Should I be concerned?" "Maybe." He stepped closer. "I want to expand the shop, add a workshop out back for bigger projects, maybe even bring in some apprentices." "Do it." "I'd need investors, or someone who believes in the long game." She folded her arms. "I believe in whatever game you play, Maddox, you know that." "I don't want you to fund it." "I'm not offering to fund it," she said. "I'm offering to build it with you, 50-50. You do that." "I already did." He stared at her, stunned. "What do you mean?" "I bought the building next door," she said casually. "It was up for sale. I figured we'd need the space." Maddox blinked. "You bought it without telling me." "I wanted it to be a surprise." "How did I not hear about this?" "I know the right people." He shook his head, then let out a breath. "You're relentless." "You love that about me." He pulled her close, his hand settling at the curve of her back. "Yeah, I do." The next day, Maddox took Ellie out for ice cream while Harlow met with contractors about the expansion. She returned to the shop to find a note slipped under the door. "Meet me where we first collided." She didn't need to ask. She grabbed her coat and headed across town. The gas station looked the same. Fluorescent lights buzzing, rain puddles collecting in the potholes. But this time, the sky was clear and Maddox was leaning against his truck, holding something behind his back. "You remember this place?" he asked when she reached him. "I remember nearly passing out on that wall." He smiled. "You looked like you'd fought a war." "I felt like I had." He stepped forward and pulled a folded sheet of paper from behind his back. "I wrote something." Harlow raised an eyebrow. "You wrote?" "I'm not a poet or anything," he said, "but I wanted to say this right." He unfolded the paper and glanced at it once before tucking it away again. "I met you on the worst day, and I thought that was all it would be a moment, but then you looked at me like I wasn't invisible. Like maybe I was worth staying for. You changed everything, Harlow. Not with your money, not with your name, with you, just you." He lowered to one knee. Her breath caught. "I don't have a yacht or a penthouse with a ballroom, But I have a son who adores you, a shop with your fingerprints all over it, and a love that's real. Will you marry me?" Harlow's knees nearly gave out. She dropped to the ground with him, cupping his face. Yes, Maddox, yes, 1,000 times. They kissed there, in the parking lot where it all began, with headlights painting streaks across the pavement and the scent of oil and asphalt in the air. They were married in the garden behind their new home under a wooden arch that Ellie helped build. The guest list was small friends, students, neighbors. The vows were handwritten. Maddox kept his simple. "You saved me. Now I get to spend forever returning the favor." Harlow wore a soft ivory dress, her hair pinned with fresh lavender. She walked barefoot down the aisle. Ellie stood beside Maddox holding the rings, grinning like he just discovered a new planet. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, Maddox dipped her low and kissed her like the world was ending. After, they danced under string lights while Ellie chased fireflies with the other kids. Maddox held her close, swaying slowly. "You know," she whispered, "I used to believe love was something I'd have to earn, by working harder, by being sharper." "You don't have to earn this," he said. "You just have to feel it." "I do, every second." He kissed her temple. "Then we're exactly where we belong." She didn't answer. She didn't need to. Years passed. The shop became a cornerstone of the neighborhood. Kids who once wandered in with nothing to do returned as mentors. The expansion doubled its outreach. Harlow started a foundation that funded hands-on learning centers across the city, each one named after someone who believed in second chances. Ellie grew tall and curious and endlessly inventive. He won